here at the Capitol. This is a study committee of outdoor learning. And I have another member, our Dean of the Senate, Senator Herberson, with me, and Senator Sally Harrell. And I'm going to ask our Dean to pray for us to get going on.
Whether it's revisiting the best way possible to influence and help most people possible.
Thank you very much. As you all know, after the first hearing, I personally visited a couple of sites that interest me, and I have multiple folks, different organizations, that reached out to me to visit those sites. We did visit a couple of sites this morning with my colleague, Senator Harold, and a couple of other members. Because of the conflict of the schedule, they couldn't be with us, but we'll continue to educate ourselves and to hear from the party concerned, all the party concerned. So before we let you speak, I'm going to ask Senator Harbison if you have any minute to say, and then we're going to follow Senator Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just honored to be here and part of this committee. I think it is very, very important about what your goals are. And I'm just honored to be part of it, and whatever I can do to help you realize those goals, I'd be more than happy to do so. Thank you. And I thank you all for coming to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. This has been an exciting topic to look at, and I really enjoyed going out this morning to the couple sites we went to, and at elementary school that had installed an outdoor classroom and had just put in their fall lettuces in their garden, and had been all involved in the planning of this effort, and it had helped them become a STEM school. It's just an amazing thing when you can get young bodies out of chairs and get them touching things and moving, and especially these kids who aren't going to get those experiences anyplace else. And then we visited 22 acres of land in the heart of Atlanta, which is amazing that has been preserved through the years, and all kinds of interesting things going on there. I saw a Georgia hemlock, which was the thing that impressed me the most. I didn't know Georgia had hemlock, so I learned something this morning as well. So I'm excited about learning more, and the committee making recommendations that hopefully will result in the state of Georgia being able to provide even more of these experiences for our children as well as our university students.
Thank you. Be honestly, I've been driving to Gainesville at that area for a long time. Every time I want to pass the 985, I see a sign, LHE Nature Center. Never been there. Didn't even realize until I went there how big that area is. And sometimes we have a lot of stuff in our close proximity that what we live and work, sometimes we don't have time to go and visit and see what we have. So I was really impressed to see some of the, all the stuff that I'm seeing, opening my eyes, basically, and as my colleague said, we're going to do whatever we can in terms of as a policymaker after we hear from you all expert. You all are doing the real work. We are here to support you all, and we'll do, and I know as a committee, we'll do whatever it takes to get going. So before we start, I would like to, thanks Professor Jeff Turner, who will be speaking first. Thank you for traveling from all the way from Middle Georgia. He's a professor at the Georgia College and State University. He's an associate professor of outdoor learning. So it's really appropriate to hear from the educational perspective. So I'll appreciate if you can come down and give a presentation.
I think my excuse me, I think my students don't think that we get nervous when we present to other people as well. They think it only happens to them. So anyway, good afternoon, senators and esteemed colleagues in attendance here today, both in person and virtually. My name is Jeff Turner. I'm an associate professor of outdoor education at Georgia College, our state's public liberal arts college. At Georgia College, we have a minor in outdoor education that helps prepare students for a wide range of majors, excuse me, to use outdoor learning as part of their professional work. We see students from majors in biology, environmental science. We see them come to us from mass communications, psychology, and a range of other disciplines. And of course, from traditional teacher education programs where they want to find ways to increase opportunities for outdoor learning in their K through 12 classrooms. I had the pleasure this past weekend to spend a weekend backpacking trip with students in my Intro to Outdoor Education course. Knowing that I was going to have a chance to speak with you all today, I asked them at the end, what do you think the senators need to hear about outdoor learning? And they told me a range of things about how important it has been for them for their learning process, how important it is for them in terms of their mental health to spend time in natural areas, how important it is for them to have built the human skills that they have in working with other people in outdoor settings, and to learn more about the natural environments that they can see throughout the state of Georgia. In fact, as we chatted with my students yesterday afternoon, they really unknowingly reiterated so much of what we heard from the first set of presenters during our first meeting, talking about those broad-based benefits of outdoor learning. In fact, they did such a good job of this, and the first hearing did such a good job of this. I hope that you'll indulge me, as I'd like to focus less on those positive impacts that I think most of us can agree come from outdoor learning, and instead focus on increasing our capacity to provide effective outdoor learning for as many Georgians as possible. As a professor, I've noted that, I am both a practitioner and a scholar, but that I do the majority of my outdoor learning through my former students as that kind of second generation, right? That I increase that capacity by making them better prepared to serve their students and other clients. And as we finish, if I may be so bold, I might make a few suggestions in terms of ways that we as a state could work towards increasing our overall capacity. So first, I think it's important for the committee to recognize that there is no single professional credential that supports outdoor educators. That does exist in some countries. We don't have that here in the United States. Outdoor educators, much like many disciplines, will come from a wide range of professional trainings. We'll obviously have traditional K through 12 educators, but we'll have folks who have backgrounds in parks and recreation or in the biologies, environmental sciences, et cetera. And this mimics the students that come to our minor from other majors across campus. Of the folks that are currently working with outdoor learning today across the state, many of them have professional training in one capacity or another, but many are also self-taught and do it simply from the passion that they have. And so my goal today is to help find ways that we can support those folks who are seeking additional training. And so I think it would be useful for us to look at some of the opportunities that do currently exist here in the state. For my sector of higher education, we see that training comes in a wide variety of ways. We have many colleges and universities, for instance, that provide that pre-service teacher education training that is so important in preparing our next group of K through 12 educators. The reality, though, is that outdoor learning is not a major force within many of those programs. As an example of this, I did some research on the top 5 colleges and universities here in the state that provide pre-service teacher education, and none of them explicitly address outdoor learning in their coursework, in the course descriptions, the course names, or in their program goals. We see this carried out throughout even the standards for pre-service teacher training. The concept of outdoor environments is only addressed in the standards for early childhood through kindergarten education, and not in the older grade students. And outdoor education as a content area is only addressed in the Georgia performance standards for physical education, and then only as an optional way that that type of physical education can occur. Outdoor specific programs in higher education are even more rare. I worked with a group of colleagues from across the country this past year, and we conducted a census. We found that in 1,482 four-year colleges and universities across the country, that there are approximately 128 outdoor specific programs in higher education, which equates to roughly 1 in 12 colleges across the country having degree programs specifically preparing future outdoor professionals. Here in the state of Georgia, we have 4 of those programs. 2 of those are in public institutions, including the minor in outdoor education that we have at Georgia College and a program at Georgia Southern in outdoor recreation, which is a specialization in the recreation and tourism management program. Both of those are what we would call a smaller program, meaning not a full academic degree program. We do have 2 other degree programs here in the state that are full major programs. They are full baccalaureate degree granting programs. One of those is Toccoa Falls College Outdoor Leadership and Education Program, and Young Harris College's Outdoor Study degree. The reality is that while Georgia is part of roughly half of all the states in the country that don't have an outdoor specific major at a public institution, we do have it at our private institutions, but that still does limit access to many of our students who are not able to attend a private institution. There are also other institutions that provide various classes in outdoor learning, whether that be part of a K through 12 program or an environmental interpretation class or other forms, but those are the only 4 that provide sufficient preparation for a full degree granting status. What we find then is that Georgia's higher education and outdoor specific programs roughly matches what the overall average is for the country, but we actually have the 7th largest outdoor economy in the entire country. And yet we are in the middle of the pack in terms of degree programs available to our students and training future outdoor professionals. Outside the realm of higher education, there are a range of other professional development opportunities for our folks who are retraining or who are trying to find ways to add on to the work that they do. A full degree program may not be accessible. So we have the wonderful Advanced Training for Environmental Education program in the state of Georgia, which provides a wide range, comprehensive program for individuals that want to engage in environmental education aspects of outdoor learning. It includes up to 60 hours of workshop time and homework for adults. Right? We have a true degree program, but we also have a wide range of other smaller programs that typically are training teachers, that are training park leaders, that are training others that want to engage in outdoor learning in the use of specific curriculum. So you may have heard of, for instance, of the projects Wet, Wild, and Learning Tree, who have really good curriculum, but they're also fairly contained. We're not training them holistically, but we're training them to use a specific form of curriculum. We have other types of environmental stewardship organizations, many of whom are here today or that we've heard from previously, that provide other types of specialized outdoor learning professional development for folks who are wanting to increase their capacity to be able to better serve their stakeholders. Finally, additional professional development opportunities are available through our Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia. We'll hear from here in a little bit. With that overview of the current state of professional development for outdoor educators here, I wanted to take a few moments to wrap up and make a few recommendations about what we could potentially do to increase the capacity for Georgians to provide outdoor learning experiences to our students, to our clients, et cetera. So first, I'd like to see us work toward expanding the role of outdoor learning within the K through 12 community. To have an explicit focus on outdoor learning within the pre-service teacher training program, something that once again is not mentioned explicitly within those standards outside of the earliest age levels. To increase the rewards for teachers and others who are using outdoor learning with students, and to provide recognition of outdoor education experiences within the state level education standards beyond that of physical education. Second, I'd love to see us continue to support state-sponsored forms of outdoor learning professional development. This would include support for higher education programs across the state, professional training through groups like the ATEAG program mentioned previously, and other types of professional development that are currently being offered, but on a smaller scale by the Departments of Education and Natural Resources. Third and finally, I'd like to see that we advocate for a greater support and interconnectedness between the many private agencies that are working so hard to provide support to individuals who want to engage their stakeholders in outdoor learning experiences. These opportunities available to teachers, park staff, youth group leaders, and the like are a great starting point, but it's often difficult for individuals who want to get started to know where to get their foot in the door, to know where to begin that professional training. Ultimately, one aspect that may be important is that, or maybe a positive addition, would be the development of a state office on outdoor recreation and education. Currently, 16 states across the country have such an office that serves to coordinate the work from various state agencies and from non-governmental organizations to make sure that the funds are directed in the right way and to provide as much networking as possible between agencies. Committee members, I thank you for your time today and allowing me to come speak with you. Please know that I'm happy to answer any further questions that you might have now or in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You have any questions?
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
You went fast. Is there a way that we could get a copy of your written notes? Is it written out?
It is. I'm happy
Okay.
to email that to you, and I can provide a hard copy today as well.
And can
Yeah,
you then
yeah,
get it to
sure.
us?
That'd be great.
Because there was a lot of good stuff.
There is. So we're chatting here in the audience. We think most of the folks had about 15 to 20 minutes the first meeting. And when we were asked to keep it to 5 minutes, I think I sped through that in order to make sure I didn't have to cut too much. It's hard to lose those words once you get them on the page.
Right, right. Okay. Can you explain the difference between the outdoor education degree that Georgia College had? Now it's a minor, but it used to be a major.
Correct.
And the environmental science degrees?
Right. So the environmental science degrees, I'm going to speak predominantly for Georgia College. One of the challenges that we have in this work, even with that study that I mentioned earlier, I did with our colleagues, is that we see very little consistency in naming programs, right? We see, for instance, Young Harris has outdoor studies, outdoor leadership and education. Different universities will use different naming conventions. Environmental studies at Georgia College, or excuse me, environmental sciences as it's called at Georgia College, is predominantly that traditional science of discovery, combinations of geography, geology, biology, chemistry coming together. There's very little within that curriculum. And I want to be careful because my colleagues may be watching here and may challenge this, but my view is that there is very little in terms of the advocacy side of things or the education or the science communication component of that. So, they're really good at collecting the data, analyzing the data, but then not so good at sharing that with layperson communities. And so that's one of the roles that we take on. And we, in the traditional outdoor programs that I mentioned in higher education, we'll typically more commonly work in those informal and non-formal environments as opposed to those formal K through 12 settings. And so we have students who are leaving and working in nature centers, who are working in state parks, who are working with those youth serving organizations and after school settings. Certainly some of our folks do go through the traditional K through 12 teacher licensure process as well. But in terms of the environmental science, that is very much the science end of things. And we are, I always like to tell my students, we are educators. We just work in different classrooms than the folks across the street in traditional K through 12 do.
So you mentioned that Georgia is the state, the seventh largest, place for recreational?
In terms of
tourism?
the value of the outdoor recreation economy, in terms of the amount that contributes to the state's economy.
Okay. What about our natural resources in terms of tourism? When you mentioned that, it seemed like what jumped into my mind was that, you think Colorado and you think all kinds of, outdoor adventure type stuff that needs guides, and that's tourism. But it seems like Georgia has a lot of that too. We've talked a lot about K-12 education, but when you mentioned tourism, it took my mind someplace different. And so I'm wondering, are we missing an opportunity there to utilize our natural resources for adventure type sports? And then would your degree being a little different than environmental science, could that help feed a need for meeting that potential of using our natural resources for tourism.
I certainly think so. What we see is that, Georgia, once again, is 7th out of the 50 states, with Colorado and some of the others that you're likely thinking of would be higher on that list. And I think that's certainly a place where the state has some untapped capacity for increased economic development. I had a conversation with a local Chamber of Commerce director from one of our coastal counties over the course of the summer. And that's a big push that they're wanting to make, bringing in ecotourism. They're in a place where some of the earlier economic drivers of the area, the shrimping fleets and things like that, have been in decline, but they see that as an opportunity now to bring in individuals and to teach them about the maritime ecology, to teach them about the historical aspects of the area. We have that happening throughout the state, and in some areas, we've done a really good job of increasing that outdoor industry component. In other areas, we have a lot of untapped resources that are still there to take advantage of.
So is that something that the infrastructure there at Georgia College could potentially help support?
I'd sure like to think so.
Well, it's a minor now, it's
Mhm.
not a full, but does the infrastructure you've had for that, is there potential there to expand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from my colleagues. She asked all my question and did very well. So thank you very much.
Let me ask you, typically, what's the enrollment size you have in your college in the minor program? Typically,
It varies quite a bit. We have, in the most recent year, had about 12 students graduate with a minor. One of the dirty little secrets of higher education is a lot of students come in, declare a minor because it's easy as freshmen, and then they get busy and they don't complete it. And so that's one of the challenges of any minor program compared to majors. They just don't have the visibility that larger programs do. And so, one of the other challenges, I think, and we'll see this with all types of outdoor learning, is that there is often a self-selection process out of that. I mentioned the trip that I took a group of students on this weekend. I'd only had one student in the class who had never gone camping before, and that was a big thing for that student. This was her first time to do that, and she admitted that she almost didn't take the class because she didn't feel like she was well prepared for that. And so making sure that folks know that there are minimal prerequisites. People often assume that if they're not already outdoorsy, they shouldn't try to become more outdoorsy.
do you also think that maybe the economic opportunity or job opportunities, people don't think that way as an employment, or it's not out there much?
Yeah,
I'm just wondering,
I think the unfortunate reality is, given what I teach, I tend to have a lot more conversations with people my age who say, man, I wished I would have known about that as an opportunity, and I wished I would have studied that. I think a lot of our undergraduate students, they tend to go to those degree programs that they know have clear paths to jobs, right? If I go into nursing, I become a nurse. If I go into a teacher education program, I become this. And so a lot of those degree programs that may sound a little different, they're often unsure of and reticent to take on. And so making sure that we let them know once again that the program is really quite accessible is an important strategy that we're trying to work through.
Thank you, Professor. I appreciate it for your
Thank you so much for your
testimony.
time.
Looking forward to your email or however you're going to send it to us. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, I hope we're supposed to be talking to on Zoom, Mr. Mark Borzeka, I guess he's the president, is a REI Director of Government Affairs. Is he on the line that we can?
Senator, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. We're running a little late, but good to see you on Zoom, I guess.
I'm just so glad that you're able to accommodate testimony from elsewhere. It's, a lot of things have come along with the pandemic, and learning how to communicate with folks like yourself from across the country is a huge opportunity. My name is Mark Boreka. I head Government and Community Affairs for REI Co-op, and we've actually got a good presence within the Atlanta area itself. We've got 3 stores, and increasingly we're running outdoor adventures in Atlanta. So even though I'm zooming in from Seattle, we like to think of ourselves as citizens of whatever state we're doing business in. The point of my comments are actually to up-level the conversation a little bit and come back to a comment that the last speaker made at the tail end, which is about the utility of creating an Office of Outdoor Recreation. I've been involved in multiple states where those offices have been created. And while they're young, they have proven to be very valuable across government, stitching together different parts of government so that they can optimize use of the natural resources, use of our parks, use of our green spaces for multiple benefits. As was mentioned, Georgia is the 7th largest outdoor economy in the United States. That translates into over 140,000 jobs directly in the outdoor sector and over $6 billion in wages. So it is an economic gem hiding in plain sight. But I do think that as we have these conversations, it's important to ask whether legislators, whether the governor's office, whether they're actually fully aware that outdoor recreation is an economic driver and a driver of other benefits. And also, even if you are aware of the role outdoor recreation plays, is the legislature doing everything it can to optimize the benefits of time outside? When I think of the multiple benefits of time outside, yes, I couldn't agree with the committee more that there's value for our children, for our progeny, our offspring. But I also talk about how important it is to think about the contributions to the health of our people more broadly, to the health of our places, and to the health of our planet. So my shorthand for the multiple benefits of time outside is it's good for the health of people, places, planet, and progeny. Plus it generates jobs. So what do I mean by that? We are learning through the pandemic something we've known intuitively, which is that time outside is good for the physical and mental health of our people. It can be one of the least expensive and most accessible medicines, if you will, for dealing with mental health issues and for keeping people healthy. So we ought to be thinking about it in a health context. Communities have stronger social cohesions. Communities feel like more of a community, require less policing, have a greater sense of togetherness when they have green spaces, safe, accessible green spaces that they can go to and enjoy each other's company in. So that's the health of a place. Obviously, when we take care of our green spaces, we're also taking care of the planet, helping combat climate change, helping pull pollutants out of the air, cleaning our water, etc. So these multiplicity of benefits for people, for our kids, for our communities, for the planet, all exist. But at the governmental level, those benefits aren't necessarily stitched together or simultaneously optimized. And nor is the economic benefit. And one of the things I'd add to the conversation about jobs is it's not just about the direct employment of the outdoor economy. When states take care of their outdoor assets, of their recreation opportunities, like a Colorado does, like a Utah does, they start to draw other types of employers, high-tech employers, finance employers, who want to attract employees who in turn want to be in those places because then they can go out and enjoy the outdoors. And so that's what these offices of outdoor recreation do. They are small offices, but they work to bust down silos across agencies and look for synergies and ways to create greater efficiencies in the spending of government dollars in service of these multiple benefits. So I'll leave it at that and just offer myself and others in the outdoor recreation business community as resources in the event you'd like to talk further about the role that these offices of outdoor recreation can play in optimizing the many benefits of time outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was a great presentation. You have any questions? Yeah.
I'd love that written down too. Although it seemed like you weren't reading, it was maybe off the top of your head or.
I have my notes and I can reduce my notes to a short one pager for sure.
Yeah, if I guess I'm more of a reader than an audio person, but yeah, if you could provide those notes, that would be great.
Yeah, happy to have them written.
Previous speaker.
Will do.
These are great. These are really good presentation, but I said, sometimes it's written, I like to read too. Sometimes it'd be helpful. If you can, you send it to us, we'll send it to the committee members.
For sure, I'll do
I'm
that.
very interested in this idea of a state office of outdoor recreation or education, both.
Especially as we are supposedly #1 state in business and attracting more, folks to, come join us. So I think that's something that we'll definitely look into it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, I guess, Ms. Katherine Moore is a person of Georgia Conservancy. She's here. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Boy, have I been set up for success with these earlier presenters. And I've got slides if we've got the ability to pull those up. And while those are coming up, thank you so much for your time. It is a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you for devoting the hours you have already this morning and then some more this afternoon to this topic. You've heard a lot of enthusiasm. I hope to give you even more. So in a nutshell, I should first introduce myself, my organization's connection to this topic, although I'm speaking today on behalf of a coalition. So I am Katherine Moore. I'm president of Georgia Conservancy. We are a statewide conservation nonprofit. We are in our 54th year. And in 1967, well, prior to this, but culminating in 1967, the individuals that became the founders of our organization meditated and connected and worried and aspired for Georgia's future in the outdoors through paddle trips, hiking trips, and so forth. And our founders absolutely believed in the opportunity for ecology to thrive alongside Georgia's economy. And so we continue to try and carry that message as staff and through our mission and our strategic plan even today. So you can begin to see why our organization would be part of a coalition, which I am representing today, the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition. And so as we think about all of those things, I'm hoping I'm going to connect a few more dots and answer a few questions that you all began to chip away at with my next few minutes of slides. And I'm visual also, so I've got to have slides. But I won't argue with the professor, but I think we found that maybe 17 states have state level offices of the outdoors or outdoor recreation. I think he mentioned 16, but we're still in the same ballpark. So these are all states that do elevate this opportunity that the outdoors represent at the state level. And this is separate from, but in partnership with our resource managers. We know that the Department of Natural Resources does an excellent job with managing those resources, habitat, and so forth. And so the very thought that our natural assets have an opportunity to enhance quality of life for our existing citizens to whom we owe a great debt, that have a tremendous opportunity to leverage and further create that economic competitiveness for our state, and then also then those Georgians and households. That is really what such an office would represent. And then inherent in that, of course, is assets, amenities, and access to the outdoors for education. So my organization, and just a very small example of what the professor was speaking of, and Mark with REI, which is that organization, is a very good partner of ours. We take people year round outdoors to hike, to bicycle, to camp, to paddle, to snorkel in rivers, and enjoy all of these outdoors as a outdoor environmental education opportunity. And the reason that we are involved and many others are involved with the Outdoor Recreation Coalition is that if Georgians become more engaged in Georgia and our natural assets, we believe then they are advocates, right, for those assets. And then we also believe that when there was the conversation the professor mentioned about speaking to an entity or a governmental entity on coastal Georgia, when our local elected officials and our local citizens see that jobs can be created and maintained, tax revenue of all type can be created and maintained with outdoor recreation opportunities, then they too become conservationists and advocates for the outdoors. So this really, this issue really has so many potentials for all types of perspectives on the outdoors. And this is why we're an enthusiastic supporter. So a couple of more data points. So again, you see that map, and certainly we see those Western states that are beautiful. I have visited a multitude of them myself, but I also like to spend my recreation dollars here. And we want to do that more and more. And we think that there's the potential to do that with a state level office that simply collaborates among other entities that are bringing parts of this to bear. But again, at the state level, we have a more permanent position. We have invested and kind of laid that, planted that flag, so to speak, that is how important outdoor economic opportunities, and I mean that in the sense of education as well, presents for our state. And I think that is hugely important, is not to be underestimated, from the power of just creating an office, whether it's outdoors, office the outdoor recreation. You know, you could play with that label, but you see the impact and the intention that our group has. So next slide, I just want to share, there's a multitude of groups here. There's a listing of, do I have this? And it works. She says, please look. How obvious can I make this for you? Thank you so much. I'm sorry, that was my fault. So we've got an extensive list of members and participants of the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition. And you see among just this snapshot, conservation organizations such as myself and our organization, Georgia Conservancy. You see governments represented. You see for-profit sector individuals. You see a variety of more inclusive groups that are representing those traditionally underserved by recreational assets, and certainly some of those that have not always felt that the outdoors were for them. And the outdoors are for everyone, and they are for all Georgians. And I think that is another reason for our state leadership, you know, to kind of plant that flag that that's what we believe as well. And so I'd like to point out that several of our key members of the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition were recently completed their support of the update of the state Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, SCORP. There's an acronym for everything, but the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan is critical as it guides us as a state for the next many years of what we will do to provide outdoor recreational amenities, investments, and management for our citizens. And key to that publication, which is being circulated now for release in November, is the creation of this type of state level office. Again, you can, you know, play with the name. But that was a key goal and recommendation from that plan. And so I wanted you to understand the support that we have and how our members are trying to help state leadership with this idea that we have and this investment that we request. And so I don't need to read all of that to you all, but I think it's really critical to at least read the vision statement of the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition. Georgia is an outdoor recreation mecca. It is. And we believe that further supporting healthy, economically vibrant communities by providing plentiful access to nature and recreation is going to be a further difference maker for our state in terms of retaining the businesses and the citizens that we have now through education opportunities, quality of life, public health amenities and opportunities. But we absolutely believe that will continue to recruit businesses and citizens to Georgia. We see more and more that individuals and their households have the opportunity to be flexible. Mark was speaking to us from states away. Why can't those folks be part of Georgia and our community here? And then a few more data points. There were a lot of interesting questions then about the economic impact. So Mark mentioned some of this and the professor did as well. I'm going to go out and then I'm going to come back in to focus on Georgia. But if you'll look here, and these are national figures as the wording indicates, but you see where nationally consumer spending is on the outdoor recreation. So I believe that's the from y'all's perspective. So the higher bars indicating more spending. It's that orange one that's the fourth N, if that's popping up clear enough on the screen there for you. That is outdoor spending per consumer. And that is up there with their financial management and financial services and healthcare. right? That's where we see that spending nationally. If you look at this lovely schematic, I love it's using trees to indicate kind of scale and impact. These are job comparisons of the outdoor recreation with other major employment industries. And you see that outdoor recreation nationally is supporting it's tiny on my screen, 7.6 or 7.4, but over 7 million jobs. And that alone is really, really impactful. But now let's look at Georgia. So in my last few minutes, to answer some of the questions, all of us get excited. I get excited when the film crews are down from my house, right? That's so much fun. And we have cities already building a local economy off their reference as a filming location for major movies or major series. But if I'm correct, and I pulled it up one more time before I spoke to be sure, I saw a 2021 study result that the direct film industry spending here in Georgia was $4 billion. That's really impressive and really exciting. But look at this outdoor recreation impact there, 27.3 billion in consumer spending annually. And you see that other figure there, that there are more jobs in Georgia that depend on outdoor recreation, almost 240,000 then on the auto industry. So Georgia has done a really good job of paying attention to certain professional routes and certain industries here for Georgia, but it's time to pay attention to what the outdoor economy can do for us. And especially when you think about the multitude of layers, again, we've heard impressive things from the opportunity for K through 12 and then higher ed. You have visited some of those locations yourselves. So to support our youngest Georgians with their learning, their mental and physical health, their introduction to potential job opportunities, which are green, sustainable jobs we believe in, all the way up to our local governments by ensuring that there is tax revenues, there's jobs, there's economic opportunity, and that levels out across our state. We have very rural areas that are resource rich, but may be poor in certain infrastructure investments that limits what they can do economically, but they might be hunting, fishing, hiking, birding, photography, et cetera, meccas, and that gives them an opportunity to those jobs as well. So in landing my plane here with these thoughts, I just want to bring this back to, the many members of the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition that might be very different if you were just to kind of pull a few and not put us on a list together. But when you put us on a list together and you see that common interest around the outdoors and what it can do, not only for our individual missions if we're nonprofits, but for the bottom lines of some counties and the bottom lines of private sector, you see that, Georgia's outdoors really are our gift. It's up to us to manage them and be good stewards of them. And we can do that while we elevate them and put the spotlight on them and connect them to jobs. I believe absolutely. Those things don't have to be separate choices. So I'll stop there. I thank you for letting me, go over a minute or two, and what questions can I answer? And just again, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Moore. I'm really just fascinated by the $27 billion I see up there. That's amazing. 238 jobs, 1,000 jobs, just absolutely tremendous. The only thing that my ears perked up to when you said you lead a lot of outdoor trips involving snorkeling and hiking and that kind of thing. And I was just wondering, what happened in Muskogee County? Do you bring them to Muskogee? We have the longest urban rapids in America, so we want to make sure you come to Muskogee County, Columbus, and shoot the rapids there and get a little outdoor fun in as well, and do the zip line across to Alabama and back across.
Yeah, the great state. I'm from the great state of Alabama, so I love that we have a zip tie connecting our great states. Yes, we do. For several years, our organization has participated with Whitewater Express in an event we called the Grand. And at the time when we did not hold one for obvious reasons past year, but when we began, and don't quote me on the year, but I want to say might have been 7 years ago, is when the Whitewater route was relatively young.
Yeah.
And so we named it the Grand because it was a little bit pie in the sky to think we could get 1,000, a grand, 1,000 people out, and we far succeeded that. And so we, in subsequent years, continued to host the event and succeed in getting, over 1,000 people out on the water. And that's a perfect example of how, there was
Absolutely.
a natural amenity that we just, maybe familiarity had bred contempt, and beyond the fact that the rapids weren't fully revealed in what they could do for us, but we just did not see what could happen with that natural asset with fresh eyes. So we
Right.
applaud the individuals that
Good
turned that around for
information,
the
good
city and
information.
county.
You're doing a great job when you brought up Columbus. Great job, I got to tell you. But Grant, but seriously, that really is good information. I'm excited about that. That's really good information. I had no idea. If we expand that, we got a lot of places we can go with that. Just really,
Absolutely.
really
And
outstanding. Thank
yes,
you.
sir. And I'll make sure this slide deck has been sent, and we also, the Outdoor Recreation Coalition has a website, and we have a one-pager. We'll make sure that gets shared with you all as well.
Thank you very much. I think, if I'm correct, this coalition is comprised of, I guess, more than 60 some organizations.
Correct.
And
Yes.
it's great to see how all the different, I think you're doing a great job trying to bring together. So maybe, just a quick question. I see the list 16 or 17 state. They all call what is the couple of states they have an office of task force? What's the difference? They're not full office, it's not established office yet. Or
Yes.
Is that the difference?
Correct. Yes. As we understand from our research that there was a state level entity, but it had not been endowed with the title or so I should say the designation and perhaps, funding to call it an office of the state of X, for outdoor or whatever the longer title was. So it had just not been elevated with that designation, but was still operating from a statewide perspective, and that intended statewide impact to kind of link different state departments and agencies together that individually touch on the outdoors, but may not have done so comprehensively. Is that making sense?
that makes
Okay.
sense.
I hope that makes
Another
sense.
thing real quick, is that office of, I see it says Office of Outdoor Recreation. Is that most of the states saying Office of Outdoor Recreation? Because what I'm thinking of when I visit all these places, there's the education part of too.
Correct.
So is that any of the states saying outdoor education and recreation or something like that?
Not
I'm just wondering,
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We can double check on this, but not to our understanding. And it's perhaps that we can be the first to better link those opportunities in a more holistic, inclusive way. So that has been our understanding. And you see the major states out west, not exclusively, but in that map that I shared with you all, many of them have, significant national park as well as state park investments. And so I'm sure the recreation element, I won't speak for those states, but I'm sure that just became this very, gravitational pull. And again, not to speak for them, but I think for Georgia, something more inclusive would meet more of our state's needs. My personal opinion, not speaking for the coalition, but I could see where this message, as we've just heard in the past few hours, blends so nicely across stakeholders and opportunities.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I really am grateful for the time. Thank you.
I guess next we're going to hear from Ms. Karen Garland, co-chair of Council of Outdoor Learning.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me go ahead. I loved what she had to say. I think today the speakers have been absolutely amazing, but now I am the teacher. I am the educator. So I would love to focus on that portion of it. Yes, my name is Karen Garland, and I happen to be the K-5 science discovery teacher at a school in Cherokee County. It's Clark Creek Elementary, and we're a certified STEM school as well. And I'm also the co-chair for the Council of Outdoor Learning, which is an initiative of the Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia. But prior to becoming a classroom teacher, I was also an environmental educator for 17 years where I've worked at both a nature center, a local nature center. And as you heard, I also worked at Georgia Conservancy as well. And so there, what I did is I would create environmental curricula for grades K through 12, which included professional development for teachers, and I offered in-school field trips for students as well. So you can see my background a little bit coming into play of what I'm going to share with you. This support also comprised of working with schools as a consultant to help them create sustainable plans for outdoor learning areas. So as part of the Outdoor Learning Committee, we came to a consensus early on, though, that we wanted to change the name from outdoor classrooms to outdoor learning centers, because oftentimes when people hear that word outdoor classroom, they think it needs to be a formal area that has pavilions, maybe has a bench, and simply just opening up the door oftentimes and going outdoors and being able to teach is what it's all about. Oftentimes, if that's all the resources that you have. So every workshop that I have taught, I've always started off by asking teachers, raise your hand if you have an outdoor learning area. And unfortunately, very few of them would raise their hands because there was this misunderstanding, thinking, oh, we need this, this area that's been developed. And I would also ask them things like, how many of you have taken your students on, a field trip to a nature center, an outdoor type field trip? And again, very few of them. So I would survey and find out things. A lot of it was a lack of resources that they would have, or possibly, with the outdoor classrooms, it was outdoor learning areas, that it was a lack of, or a fear, I should say, of taking their students outdoors. And you probably are familiar with a lot of the things that would come to mind. Oh, the mosquitoes are there. Oh, the poison ivy. There are snakes there. I might lose control of my classroom if I do that. And so many of them, I would also ask, well, you're here at a workshop. Why are you here? And at the time, Georgia had it to where teachers, we had to be recertified every 5 years. So they would come for professional development reasons. So oftentimes they would see this, they would get what were called professional learning units. And so they would come for those units, and then they would take the workshop and they're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I love what you're sharing with us. I love this opportunity with my students. I did not know that this was a way to teach. And then unfortunately what happened, or fortunately, is that we no longer need those professional learning units. They're in-house now. So now a lot of the trainings are being done within the schools, and teachers no longer have to go other places trying to get their recertification credits every 5 years. So we've lost that opportunity of being able to get them in, that hook of getting those credits. And then being able to use, kind of like, the where you have the carrot and dangle it in front of them, and they're attracted that way. So I have also traveled this state, looking at other schools and seeing what resources that they have. And, we think about, I've even taught classes, inner city Atlanta, and they're like, we don't have an outdoor space. And I said, sometimes it's simply just opening the door, and that crack in the sidewalk can become an opportunity to study. But I've also went down to South Georgia, very many rural areas you would think would have a tremendous amount, of green space and all that to study. And that's not always the case. There was one school in particular, it happened to be where they combined 2 counties, and it was a middle and high school that had been combined. So it was Stewart Quitman Middle and High School. So I'm down there and I'm going to teach a workshop for the teachers, and a simple activity of just going outside and looking at the trees and being able to do a lot of math type problems with them. And we go out and they have 1 tree, and it had just been planted, and it was probably no more than 3.5 feet. I'm like, wow, here we were going to measure, the height of the tree and, looking at the shadow and all this, which we can do, but I can also just take a yardstick and go over and literally just measure the tree, which kind of defeated the purpose. But across this busy highway, there was actually timberland there. So there are lots of trees, but there's a highway, a busy highway, and there's no way to get the students over there safely. So as I look at this, I start to think in my mind, there are ways that we can teach here. There are, but for a teacher taking this workshop, sometimes that's a struggle for them to try to sit there and problem solve. Well, how can I use my campus for this when it's just nothing but barren soil? Well, there are opportunities there, but like I said, oftentimes without having that support, it is a struggle for them as well. So through the years, I've had many times that teachers have shared with me that they have wanted to take their students outdoors, but they do have those fears. And sometimes it is even administration thinking that, oh, it's just recess time. You're just going out to play, not realizing that they're actually connecting those standards back to that particular lesson, that it's not playtime. And others share, that they don't have the funding for outdoor learning areas or a station or the equipment to support their students' outdoor investigations. And this is where many organizations, like the Council of Outdoor Learning, Environmental Education, a lot of the nonprofits and state organizations that are out there, this is where they play a vital role in providing support and sharing those resources and the tools and the techniques and strategies to help these schools be successful. However, there is still so much that needs to be done to grow those opportunities for all of our children as schools continue to search for, research-based ideas that will enhance their students' learning in those 21st century skills. This even goes with the field trips that are being offered. Unfortunately, I know within my county that I'm in, field trips are back on, yay, which is great. But unfortunately, there's a shortage of bus drivers. So again, you have these opportunities, but that funding source not being there for these students. So the school that I currently work at, though, is a Title I school. And it's in a community where few students have opportunities to experience the outdoors. And for this reason, one of the ways that we decided to use our schoolyard was with the creation of school gardens as a hands-on tool that would be used to integrate all subjects. So it's not just science. Yes, I'm the science teacher, but I also integrate all subject areas. And we integrate that with food and nutrition education. So that way we can also teach our students the importance of healthy eating as well. They need to know where their food is coming from. The other day, the end of last school year, we were planting a pizza garden. They seriously thought we were planting pizza seeds. Oh my gosh, we're going to have pepperoni seeds and cheese seeds. I wish, but no, and so that was a learning opportunity. And then of course, when they came back at the beginning of the school year, we have peppers and basil and tomatoes, and they're out there and enjoying and now of course, linking that, there are no pepperoni seeds to be had anywhere. And so what is so unfortunate though with this is many of them have never played in the dirt before. And so there is that fear of just getting their hands dirty. Now, through the experience, I have some now that they will sit there and they're rubbing it all over because they just think that's fun. And you know what? It's okay because you can wash later. And I'm sure the comments that are made when they go home to mom and dad are probably very interesting. So with our outdoor learning center, though, we're able to generate more classroom hours outside, and we create this vital link between learning as what was confined within those four walls, and a community space that is used as part of our social, emotional, and learning initiative. You might have heard that has the acronym SEL. And what that is really came to the forefront during the pandemic. So many of the students, their emotional well-being, and how we as educators can address some of those things. So we use our outdoor space because, as we know, these areas are very calming, and they help ease a lot of their anxieties and things. So we use that as well. They receive instruction in other subject areas. So not just gardening, but they're doing nutrition and biology and ecology and math and reading and writing and art in these spaces. And they're being able to integrate all of these subject areas into those state standards. So the curriculum allows the students to learn through a hands-on interaction. So through this approach, students began to see how these subjects are relevant to what they are studying in the classroom and the real world. And all students are able to participate in building their appreciation, their understanding, their commitment to our natural world through a variety of respective lessons that have been created. So equally exciting, though, is the team building, the collaboration, the problem solving, the critical thinking that takes place organically outdoors. We also work on we have project-based learning, and this is where the students are going to work on a product. So the goal has been set, and there's going to be something they're going to create at the end, but we also do problem-based learning as well outdoors. So the students identify something of need, and then they work to solve it, and we work on goals collaboratively. And in fact, one year, my third graders had noticed that there were no butterflies that were coming to our school grounds. And they were very upset about this, of course. And so I know what the answer is. I know it's because they don't have the habitat, but I had them go and they researched and they found out, oh my gosh, there's no nectar plants here, flowers for them. There's no host plants. And so they worked up a plan. They built this garden. They planted the garden, and last spring, they put in the milkweed for monarch butterflies. And so this year there were 15 caterpillars that they went out and counted. So again, they were able to, address a problem, and they solved it very nicely. And now this benefits all of our grade levels with different standards based, so there's that connection to that as well. So students also, though, use our school grounds to gather data that is also submitted to scientists around the world. And so they're working on their citizen science projects. It could be pollinators, it could be rocks and soil, plant growth, cloud formation. Each grade level that I work with has a specific citizen science project that they work with. And the empowerment that they feel and knowing that they are collecting this data and submitting it to science and benefiting so many in other different areas. So additionally, I have witnessed students that struggle in my classroom become rock stars outside. I have had some that really the behavior, the emotional side of it, and they're out there and they're, becoming the leader. This is how you measure. This is how you're going to plant this, and taking charge of that. And I've always said, change of place, change of pace. So it's not just teaching science, but all subject areas. So I've taught writing, I've taught, reading, I've taught all of that. And I have students that, this is why we're learning this. And I don't know how many times in school you would sit there and think in your mind as your teacher was teaching something, when am I ever going to use this? And so this provides that opportunity to them. And those field trips are going to provide also, so if they within their school ground, but also those field trip opportunities, another opportunity to connect what they're learning within those classrooms. The lessons come alive to them, where the learning is moved, like I said, from those four walls beyond the pages of a book. They can apply it, which thus leads to how this knowledge that they've learned is applicable to their lives and to their communities as well. Academics, cognitive, and behavior are all positively impacted. So in other words, learning becomes fun. They're engaged and it becomes fun. So this education not only provides a springboard to involve students in real world issues specific to their corresponding communities, but it also assists them in developing skills of inquiry, investigation, and cooperative learning, which is beyond what our state standards are. It's a circular enterprise. Students need to be informed. When they are informed, they will probably be concerned. When concerned, they will want to be involved, and they learn best when they can personally relate real life to the subject matter they are being taught. It is also vital to make these connections, as they are going to be our next decision makers. If they don't have opportunities to connect with the outdoors and build understanding of the importance of clean water, clean air, and the impact of habitat destruction, etc., they are not going to care if the water and air is polluted, if the forests are being destroyed, and a species is in decline. Like many educators, I believe that fostering this deep and lasting compassion and appreciation of this natural world is critical to our future. Encouraging these attributes while providing direct experiences with the environment, both on and off campus, help develop awareness that's going to further inquiry, which will hopefully lead to increased knowledge, concern, stewardship, and action. But how can you encourage someone to be a steward of the environment when appreciation for its importance may not have been nurtured? How can you be an advocate for its preservation without first providing the educational background needed for understanding those fundamentals? Therefore, it's important that we provide them with experiences that engage all of their senses and connects what they are learning to real world scenarios. In an effort to meet these goals, we hope to see all students' innate curiosity fostered, empowering them to become problem solvers, critical thinkers, and collaborators. As mentioned earlier, children possess inherent attitudes of care and compassion. They must be supported and encouraged to explore their surroundings in order for them to make decisions and to take action to protect this ever-changing world. And all of our children need these learning experiences. Thank you so much today for allowing me this opportunity to share with you. This truly is one of my passions, one of my loves of ensuring that all of our children have these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. We'll move on next to Ms. Charmaine Gondley, the Children Nature Network.
Wow. All I can say is wow. Wow and wow again. Thank you, senators, for having me. Thank you to every one of my colleagues who have set the table. Why do I say they've set the table? Karen, Catherine, Professor Jeff, all talked about the quality of early learning experiences. That's my background. I'm an early childhood professional. I've been in the field for many years, what is called from cradle to career. That means I decided when I was teaching young children that when I got to the age where I couldn't sit crisscross applesauce anymore, it would be time to teach the adults. So I have served as a Georgia state approved trainer for early childhood. I co-developed the pre-service birth to 5 training program that Georgia State University has for their birth to 5 students. I was the creator and developer of the early care and learning department for TCSG, which is the Technical College Systems of Georgia, at what was formerly Griffin Technical College, is now Southern Crescent Technical College. Prior to that, I served at the United Way of Greater Atlanta for 15 years as the Director of Quality Improvements for Early Learning. And I share all that with you for you to understand why I said they set the table for the best for last, because my background is solid in early childhood development and education. When I was in the classroom teaching, I frequently took children outside because I knew the benefits of their gross motor skills as well as their cognitive development. I remember one year I found a tree stump in a vacant lot. It about tore up the back of my car, and I had somebody pick it up and put it in there to take it to my classroom so I could teach my kindergartners science from the tree stump, and they absolutely loved it. Since joining the Children in Nature's Network earlier this year as the inaugural Health and Nature Fellow, and I'll tell you what that means later on, I have become passionate about ensuring that all children in Georgia have access, have the greatest access to the benefits of nature-based outdoor learning, especially those who have the greatest need due to negative environmental impacts resulting from origins of inequities and multiple chronic adversities. Unfortunately, these variables are higher in low-income communities of color impacted by racial inequities. One of the areas that I'm most passionate about is brain development. This is because 90% of brain development takes place before the age of 5 years old. And we all know how important early brain development is in determining positive outcomes for children. There's substantial science pointing to this. And senators, you have a list of resources available for you. And I have some extra ones, Keelan, if you can share, if anybody else would like those. But the most important one I want to bring to your attention is from Dr. John Shonkoff from Harvard. He's Harvard University, Harvard School of Medicine, pediatrician trained, came out with a report in October of 2020, how poverty and trauma affect brain development. It's about a 20 to 20-minute long YouTube video worth your time and effort to take a look. You will see the link on there. There are also some other further research that's shown that Children in Nature Network, and that has been listed also for you. I'm going to get straight to it. My recommendation is that we know that time in nature improves physical and mental health. For all of these reasons, we urge the Georgia Senate to consider appropriating funds to conduct a statewide outdoor learning needs assessment. All of Georgia's children deserve access to the benefits of outdoor learning. To know where we need to invest, we first need to know who does what and who has and who hasn't done. Currently, the Southeastern Environmental Education Association Alliance, SEEA, has just completed an analysis of outdoor learning and providers that includes Georgia. But upon this, we need additional where we can build off of this, what they have created. There's growing movement across the state of Georgia from everyone that you've heard that already have spoken. The Children in Nature Network has partnered with the Trust for Public Land, Park Pride, and many other organizations to help DeKalb County Schools, Atlanta Public Schools, to build upon this, and the Green Schoolyards and the community schoolyards in these two districts. Specifically, the partnerships have expanded. We have partnerships with municipal and school district leaders, with preschool, elementary, middle, high school educators, parents, community engagement members, NPUs. We have partners here from Kaboom all the way from California, Kaboom's Playground. We have higher ed partners that we've already heard from. And now is the time for the state to lend its shoulder to the wheel to ensure all of Georgia's children have access to outdoor learning opportunities. I have pictures right now that Senator Rahman is going to be surprised to see, and you guys have to tell me how to I hit the button in the middle to the right. So you also see a flyer in there from the Fraser Center, which is a local, there we go, which is a local childcare center, because 90% of brain development takes place before the age of 5. The Fraser Center was one of the locations that we actually funded when I worked at United Way. And before I left, she told me they were going to create an outdoor forest inclusion education program. And I recommended that she reach out to Senator Rahman to go out and visit, and he did. And I want to share pictures of what took place in this early learning so that we can plant these seeds early on so that the children can develop what we need them to have going forward. Remember these?
Yep.
He went last Tuesday. I was so excited. The executive director, Paige McKay-Cubic, reached out to me and she said, Senator Rahman came and I'll send you the pictures. And I said, well, I will share them at the hearing. Any questions specific to early learning? Yes. I'm sorry.
Where is that?
It's, you have the flyer in your,
Okay.
The president right of East Palms, I was surprised to see how big the facility was.
Yes.
Really nice, enjoyed it.
One question, I'm
Yes.
sorry, one question. What is the Georgia Green Schoolyards?
that is the initiative that Children in Nature Network is working towards. So
Who's doing it?
Children in
It's
Nature
in the
Network,
information.
who I work for. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, so
Good.
that supports all the research, but I can get you additional research on the green schoolyards as
Okay,
well.
thank you.
I have
Any other
one-
questions?
I
Yes.
have one quick question. What's the difference between the green school year and say community school year? What's
George,
the-
you want to come around?
Okay, I mean, well, we can ask him when he comes in later on. I just, trying to figure it out, I guess, anyway,
That's
so
good
George
information.
Dusmer is the next anyway. Appreciate.
There you
He
go.
can come in.
So you all set the table for me and I set the table for him. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
you.
appreciate it.
So my name is George Dusenberry. And I guess I'll start by giving a little background about myself. Emory Law grad. I grew up in Chapel, North Carolina. I was interested in doing environmental law, I thought, and then realized I actually did like policy more than law. So I ended up working 10 years for Congressman John Lewis. I was his legislative director up in DC, his district director down here. Left there to be Parks Recreation Commissioner for the City of Atlanta. I left there to work for Park Pride, did that for 6 years, a local nonprofit works in parks. 4 years as the Parks and Recreation Commissioner for the City of Atlanta, and I've been with the Trust for Public Land. It will be 6 years on Halloween. It's easy to remember your anniversary date when you start on Halloween. You need something like that. And coincidentally, my youngest son actually went to the Fraser Center. So, and I was actually walking through the Fraser Center yesterday. So it's a beautiful space. Let me see if I got this right here. Okay. So the Trust About Land, we're a national organization. We've been around, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. And we believe that our mission is to create parks and preserve land for people. So people really are at the center of everything we do. I think this is a big resonance here for outdoor learning, because we look at outdoor learning holistically in terms of you go out there, you've heard some of the benefits of nature in terms of mental health, physical health, but it's not just outdoor learning in school. You can get outdoor learning after school. You can, and it's not just for kids, it's for adults. My wife and I were on a bird walk along the Chattahoochee just yesterday, learning more from outdoors. For Trust About Land perspective, we preserve land not just for nature or for critical habitat or biodiversity, but really for people, because we recognize when people have access to the outdoors, they're healthier, they're more resilient. And we also look at this through the lens of equity in terms of too often it's communities, it's poorer communities, communities of color that historically have not had access to the outdoors. We've been around for 50 years, you accomplished quite a bit. So again, national organization, these are some of the things we've done across the country. We also have been active in Georgia. We celebrate our 30th anniversary actually on Friday night. We've done more than 200 projects across the state. We're most proud of working with the National Park Service to create the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Park. We also are very proud of our work with the Atlanta Beltline, where we created the vision for adding all those parks and green spaces, actually went out and acquired a lot of the land that has become those parks. And we've been active on the Chattahoochee River, including down in Columbus, for our 30 years, preserving 18,000 acres and 80 miles of riverfront, including some of the land that is part of the Whitewater Express space down there in Columbus. So, and anyhow, so that's our history here in Georgia. We touch the outdoors in 3 ways. I want to highlight this. You guys were at the Outdoor Activity Center this morning, and they are one of the groups that works with us on a Thrive Outside initiative. And what this is the Outdoor Foundation basically wanted to create networks of organizations working together to get people of color, particularly children of color, outdoors. And they came to us and they asked us to help work and make this happen in Atlanta. We do not do outdoor programming and we do not own land. So I say we're the Trust for Public Land. Our goal is always to get that land into the hands of the public, so we create the parks for everybody to use. But we know a lot of folks, as you may have heard, right? We work with Kaboom, we work with the Children Nature Network. We also work with the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. And so we work with YMCA's, Boys and Girls Clubs. And what this does is it brings the City of Atlanta's Department of Parks and Recreation, Boys and Girls Clubs, and YMCA's, and connects them to groups like the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance, Trees Atlanta, Georgia Audubon, Chattahoochee River Keeper, the Chattahoochee Nature Center. And so we're bringing those kids from the city of Atlanta, particularly the west side of Atlanta, and getting these outdoor experiences close to home and at the Chattahoochee River, which is a big priority of ours. Here's just a kind of a network that explains, a graphic that explains what that network really looks like. The second way we touch outdoors, and then Katherine talked about this, is the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition and Senator Harbison. That was actually created after a Georgia Trail Summit in Columbus 3 years ago. There was a panel discussion, and at the panel discussion, somebody said, hey, we've been really successful with GOSA. Thank you guys for bringing us GOSA and helping to fund Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program. What's next? And so actually the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition was born from that. TPL has been one of the founding members and very active with it. Again, a focus on the outdoors. And as Katherine said, and I'll go a little slowly here so you can read this stuff. This talk about the Office of the Outdoors and that focus. We are supportive of that too. We do like the holistic look at this, just like you're looking at outdoor learning holistically, and that it's not just in school, not just kids, it's adults, it's everywhere outdoors. We believe that Office of Outdoors can be most effective in terms of bringing together the Department of Education, Department of Natural Resources, but also economic development, community development, even Department of Transportation. They build trails. That's getting folks outdoors. Let's get everybody together and doing that. So a great amount of synergy with the Office of the Outdoors. And then the last thing I want to talk about was the Schoolyards Initiative. And you guys visited one of our sites at Dobbs Elementary. So the Trust Public Land has, actually, it's funny, the Children's Nation Network has a similar color. We were just kind of talking about all the benefits of schoolyards, green schoolyards, community schoolyards. And a little bit that's a little semantics in terms of, what is a community schoolyard? What's a green schoolyard? I think a green schoolyard is a schoolyard that incorporates green elements into it. So it's not just asphalt or, just you have the trees, you have the learning gardens. A community schoolyard is a schoolyard that's available to the general public during non-school use. And so that is the difference, I would say. So a green schoolyard can be a community schoolyard and vice versa, but you could also have a green schoolyard that's not open to the community. And you could have a schoolyard that is like a basketball court and asphalt that is a community schoolyard, but not a green schoolyard. And again, to emphasize the point, again, it's about community. So from the Trust Public Lands perspective, access to the outdoors, access to green space. It's important that we obviously build these schoolyards to benefit the kids, but also to benefit the community surrounding. That's a big important point for the Trust Public Land. And the big idea for us, if you look around the country, the largest landowner oftentimes is schools. And over the last probably 2-3 decades, you've seen a trend to kind of closing off schools. So during non-school hours are not available to the general public for use. And the reason that this is really important is that too many people across the country do not have access to parks and green space. And yet they have a school that, like I was talking to an APS facilities person who said, yeah, my job is to build 8-foot fences around all our schools. That's contrary to what we want to do. So what would happen if we take all the schoolyards and make them parks during non-school hours? And here you see what the impact would be if we do that. 19 million people would have access to a park. And the way we define park at Trust Public Land is half-mile walk, 10-minute walk, and you'll see some graphics coming up. And so one of our big initiatives nationwide is to make this happen. We are making this happen, as Charmaine said, here in Georgia. Sorry, so we're, I need to remember my slides here. Nationally, we are, I think, the only nonprofit that has been building schoolyards, although I understand Kaboom's getting the space and we've been talking about them for a couple decades, actually showing on the ground what a community schoolyard can be, because too often the barrier is inertia and fear in terms of the school system, in terms of actually doing this. Yeah. And so we actually work out and we do it and we show it, hey, the sky didn't fall. Hey, the Huns didn't invade. Your kids are involved. They're enjoying it a lot more. The community is coming in. So here you see this is our footprint currently in terms of our schoolyard program across the country. And you see Atlanta, as Charmaine mentioned, is in there. We are looking to go into DeKalb County, also working with the Children's Nature Network. And she also talked about equity. And what this is TPL is a really good GIS map. And this ties a bit into what Charmaine mentioned in terms of recommendation of doing assessment of what's happening around the state in terms of access to outdoor learning. And we actually are partnering with the Children's Nature Network in Minnesota to do this. And what you see here on the map is a dark green is actual parks in the city of Atlanta. And we do this for every urban area actually in America. The light green are those neighborhoods, residents who live within a 10-minute walk of that park. And then you see the orange and the red. Those are communities that don't have access to the park. And then what we do is we look at household income, we look at demographics, we look at number of kids, and then we prioritize those areas in terms of which ones need access to more parks more. So lower resources, more people of color, more kids, those are higher areas of needs, and those show up in red in this map. And then we added schools and we added school walk. And so we could identify schools that are located in park deserts. And as we did our program here in the city of Atlanta, we prioritized those schools, invited them to participate. They were located in park deserts, particularly ones that had low income, communities of color, and lots of kids. This is a map of Columbus, because I knew that Senator Harbison was going to be here, and I've already shown my Atlanta one. So you may recognize. So it's the same thing, except instead of orange and red, we have light purple and dark purple. Okay. And this is a tool called ParkServe, which is available on our website. Anybody wants to use it. ParkServe. I can make this presentation available to everybody, but it's every urban area defined by the census in the United States. We've gone and we've done this. We've mapped all the parks and we've mapped all of the walk shed, and then we show where people do not have access in the purple. And you can zoom in here a little bit. I was going to do a demonstration, but we could not work that. So here we've zoomed in and we've identified a park, Richards Middle School, sorry, a school that currently is an area of need, light purple. And then you can see it on the map, and then you can see the blue around it, which is the walk shed. And so we do that, and we can then figure out and do a report in terms of how many people would that serve and what are the demographics of the people we'd serve. You also can go anywhere in park serving, you can create your own park. So here I've just gone and I've created a park, and I can't read that here, but I had it before. I'm not sure where in Columbus this is. I apologize. But then we can also generate a report from that. And so you get a better sense of where it is. You can see the demographics. So you can do this. So if you are a municipality, you can do this for a school or a space. You can say, what would be the impact if we were to put a park in this site? And every park is an opportunity for outdoor learning. I want to emphasize that. Just being outdoors. When you read Richard Lou's Last Child in the Woods, kind of the precursor of the Children Nature Network, he just talks about unstructured play outdoors and how important that is. And that's why parks and green space are so important. So this is our park serve, which we're very proud of. And we can do demonstrations. If there are any elected officials who'd like us to talk and do some work with them, we can do that. But this is kind of a foundation for what Charmaine is talking about in terms of doing a broader assessment in terms of outdoor learning across the state, which also ties into one of the recommendations from the SCORP and one of the proposals of the Georgia Outdoor Recreation Coalition. Again, SCORP was a state conference about the recreation plan, that we create a statewide map of outdoor recreation assets and then use that to build a master plan for how we want to have outdoor recreation in the state of Georgia, which is very similar to this assessment. And then that ties in, to my mind, in this broader holistic view of outdoor recreation in terms of meeting kind of that Office of the Outdoors as a central person to bring this all together. So DNR is doing this SCORP and they're looking at outdoor recreation. Well, the Department of Education may be doing this outdoor learning assets. Why are we doing that separately? How can we bring that together and coordinate and collaborate around that? And I think that's why we think that the Office Outdoors is so important.
May I dialogue with you?
Oh, sure.
That is very interesting. And the reason I'm when you made the comments about a couple of sites there is a project now underway in Columbus, Georgia, headed up by a Mr. Ronzel Buckner, and it's called the MLK Outdoor Learning Trail. And it goes from Macon Road and Rigdon Road all the way over to MLK Boulevard, all the way downtown. And at each site, say a half mile or quarter mile, there'll be a learning session at that, learning pods along the way to get people hiking and walking and talking about that. So I think it would be very and extremely important for you guys to get together and talk about that. It's a tremendous opportunity for that. And for both of you, I thought when she said the green space, that popped in my mind.
Well, I think we both would welcome the introduction. I will say that this actually, in addition, working for parks actually works for trails too. So you can actually do a trail on there and do it also. So, and similarly, our conversations with Kaboom nationally are actually using similar, metrics to identify where they can do their work more impactfully too. So you see a lot of collaboration going on here. I think that's it. Oh, got to close. So you guys visited Dobbs. This is just some pictures of our engagement going on, and then kind of the picture at the end before we open up the schoolyard. And that's it. So if there are any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Have any question right now? She might.
You just very quickly referred to some other work or something in the woods or
Oh,
something.
Last Child in the Woods.
Last Child in the Woods.
Yeah,
Is that an older book?
Yeah, Richard Louv, it's probably about 15 years old, 10, 15 years. It's interesting. Yeah. We can get you a copy of that book if you like. I'm sure actually Charmaine would be better than I would.
Last Child in the Woods.
Last Child in the Woods. He's grew up in San Diego and just kind of started talking about his experience there. It was a seminal moment, I think, actually in the entire outdoor education, outdoor learning movement. And he brought together a lot of the research, started talking about nature deficit disorder. He coined that phrase in the book.
Okay.
And then it gave birth to the Children Nature Network.
And it's interesting because I heard about him many years ago at the National Association for the Education of Young Children Conference.
Yeah. So
Actually, I think I've read the book.
you may have. There's other ones like nature deficit. There's one, I forget. There's some other ones out there. Yeah, with a frog, child kissing a frog.
Thank you very much. Appreciate.
Okay,
Last
thank you.
not the least, I would like to hear from Ms. Karen Wood, which is Executive Director for the Environmental Education Alliances. No, that's great. That's great. That was,
We got some fast talkers here
Yeah.
today.
Hi, everybody. Karen Wood with Environmental Education Alliance. Let's see. So the organization that I'm with is a coalition of outdoor learning providers. And some of those are nonprofits. Some of them are public agencies like water departments and solid waste departments and DNR divisions. And some of them are schools or universities. So our organization was created by the governor 30 years ago. It was the Environmental Education Roundtable. And our vision is to help every child, every Georgia child, have outdoor learning experiences. So there are about 750 organizations and individuals in our coalition. And we have the nation's first nationally accredited certification program for environmental educators, including non-formal educators like rangers and naturalists and interpreters, and also teachers. And that program, which Professor Turner referred to earlier, is run by a committee of our organization called ATEAG, the Advanced Training for Environmental Educators in Georgia. So it's nationally accredited and was the first in the country. And we also have a committee that's called the Council of Outdoor Learning. Karen Garland is the chair of that and on our board. And so their mission is to provide a toolkit and an annual symposium and a certification program for cool schoolyards. So that's a little bit different. There's one more. So if community schoolyards are the ones that are available to communities after hours to provide playgrounds and green space for the neighborhood. And if green schoolyards are the ones that have health and wellness and equity and green opportunities for students, then cool schoolyards, based on our Council of Outdoor Learning, are the ones that focus primarily on outdoor learning as what happens in the schoolyard. But we're all allied, we're all adjacent, and certainly there's a lot of overlap between all of these concepts. EEA promotes best practices in outdoor learning, and part of this is something that came to us when about 20 years ago, the State Department of Education, first of all, the state legislature passed legislation to create a Georgia Outdoor Classroom Grant Program. And the Department of Education asked us to administer it. And in the process, over an 8-year period, we were able to set the criteria and review the proposals and recommend the funding for thousands of outdoor learning areas across the state. This is back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And so we did research on that afterwards, and we evaluated what worked and what lasted and what didn't. And that's for another time, because there's a lot to that. But based on that, we kind of developed some best practices. And that's something that we try to promote through the workshops and professional learning and conferences and so forth that we provide for the Georgia community. So we also have some model programs like Monarchs Across Georgia, which is a citizen science project where students can collect data and contribute it to real scientific research. And let's see. And now I'm going to give you a preview of my bottom line. My recommendation to you today is that the Senate Study Committee on Outdoor Learning propose a grant program that would support outdoor learning in the state and that the beneficiaries of that could be schools or nonprofit organizations or public agencies that do outdoor learning. And the kinds of things that they might fund that might be eligible uses of that money would include not only green spaces, greening of schoolyards or of outdoor learning areas, and physical improvements, like, for instance, what we saw today at Wawa, where they had the beautiful hydroponics facility that schools could come in and participate in, but also professional development for teachers, because that's really key. And supplies and equipment for students to be engaged in meaningful activities. So now to make the case for that, there's some recent research from Stanford that's very clear about the value of outdoor learning, not just in terms of the educational gains, although that academic improvement is really important, but the other things too. Several people have already talked about this, so I'll just mention that the information that's linked in this PowerPoint is also, it's this document, which you have a copy of. And so that's very useful to look at and just see some of the research that's been able to make clear and definitive conclusions about the value of outdoor learning. Excuse me. One way in which the research shows that outdoor learning is effective is that it boosts academics. So kids learn better when they make real world connections. It happens, it's true with math, it's true with science, it's true with language arts. When they can be doing something instead of just reading about it, they learn it better, they internalize it. But here's the interesting thing, struggling students, and especially in lower income schools, have the biggest academic gains from outdoor learning. So that's very impressive, and it's something that is something to keep in mind. Our Georgia Standards of Excellence were developed with this, what they call three-dimensional learning concept, which is intended for the kind of project-based outdoor exploration that is possible when you take students out in the schoolyard. So it's a perfect match there for what was intended when the Georgia standards were created. And engaging kids in making sense of outdoor phenomena is considered an equitable and inclusive practice because it doesn't depend on prior knowledge and exposure. So everybody has an equal footing when they're trying to make sense of an unknown phenomenon that they're exploring outside. And there's a whole science to this, but it's a really important thing to note that all kids benefit from this. There's a really cool quote here on your handout, if you care, that says that a middle school teacher is integrating outdoor learning into their traditional curriculum noted the hands-on aspect was an equalizer for students and a variety of learning styles and learning abilities. The kids who had trouble learning and the kids who were super advanced, they were all having the same discussion. And that's part of that whole phenomenon-based learning that our Georgia standards are based on, that works better when it's outside. So also, outdoor learning enhances civic engagement. We want folks to grow up to vote, and we want them to grow up to have responsibility for their communities and to be willing to take care of their earth. And so from a civic engagement standpoint and a behavior standpoint, outdoor learning has a lot of benefits. Restless kids, it seems kind of counterintuitive. You think, well, I don't know if I want to take them outside. They may be hard to manage, but it turns out kids who are very restless in the classroom are the ones who can better regulate themselves and who perform better outside. And these childhood nature experiences, you may wonder, well, what does outdoor learning have to do with outdoor recreation and nature experiences? But the thing is that childhood nature experiences have lifelong impacts, and it's part of the continuum. So if we can get kids outdoors to explore and to experience awe and wonder and curiosity, that feeds into the outdoor learning and really benefits it. And students gain confidence when they do projects outdoors to solve real world problems. That gives them a sense that they can really make a difference in the world, because otherwise, you may have heard this, but when kids take high school environmental science classes, very often they become paralyzed with not knowing what they can do. They feel they've inherited a ruined earth. And it's easy to give up and walk away, disengage, instead of feel motivated to do something about it. So engaging kids in bite-sized schoolyard problem solving is a solution to that. It empowers them and provides self-efficacy, the belief in themselves and being able to make a difference. see if I can catch up. So some additional benefits to students that you've already heard so much about from others that I won't really get into are improved physical and mental health. And of course, reduced spread of COVID. There are some schools that during the pandemic put up big party tents and put folding tables out there, and rain or shine, taught outside every single day. And that was this is a beautiful thing about Georgia. We've got that beautiful weather where we can do that. Exposure to outdoor careers. We heard about some of that at Wawa today and from George and other speakers today. And then employability and life skills like collaboration and problem solving, as Karen Garland mentioned. And then benefits to communities from outdoor learning. We've already talked, a lot of people have talked about the economic value of outdoor learning and outdoor recreation, and dual use of school grounds for flood control or green infrastructure, or for neighborhood parks, and for the partnerships that brings into to the school, so that the community stakeholders, the community organizations and businesses that get involved can help students with their projects as well. Excuse me. And then I guess another thing that is important to consider is that outdoor learning is actually very cost effective. One thing we learned when we were administering the original Georgia Outdoor Classroom Program was that by calling it outdoor classrooms, we did a big disservice. It really gave people the impression that you had to put benches and rows in front of a lectern or a chalkboard. And so this sort of outdoor classroom was the kind of thing that people were thinking they were supposed to build, with concrete seats and a podium at the front. But it's not about moving the lecture outside. It's about changing the way students learn. As you can see in that other picture, kids who are really exploring and doing experiments and doing investigations, collecting data. And so that's what we're looking for. Natural areas make great learning spaces in all subjects. And it's important, this is one of the things that one of the lessons learned, to prioritize work surfaces instead of seats. It's not about putting butts in chairs outside. It's about engaging kids in doing experiments and labs and investigations and looking through microscopes at the leaves that they found, and tying it in with the curriculum so that they're learning about what they would, you're substituting a lesson outside for a lesson that would have taken place inside. It's not extracurricular fluff that's going on outside. It's the real thing. So support and professional learning for educators is key to high quality outdoor learning. It's not something that's intuitive, and it's not something that our teachers are getting in colleges for the most part. Teachers can come out of college with a degree to teach and be certified to teach elementary school, having had only one science class in their entire curriculum, and none on outdoor learning. So taking advantage of locally led, community relevant nature centers and outdoor learning providers can really increase increase our inclusivity and equity too. We're interested in the whole state of Georgia, not just the urban areas, the rural areas, the areas that don't have any nearby nature centers or environmental ed centers. We're interested in how we can get outdoor learning to all kids. And here are some pictures of what it can look like. We've talked about what it doesn't have to look like. But for instance, cable spools turned on their side can be, learning stations. The little tables out there at Fry Elementary in the upper left corner have $12 Costco shade umbrellas. There are kids on the upper right-hand corner that are using 5-gallon buckets with padded lids to sit on, and inside the bucket they put their tape measures and their scales, their clipboard. They have a little portable outdoor classroom, a pop-up outdoor classroom. In the bottom pictures, they're gardening. And then I love this picture on the right-hand corner where they've taken a raised bed, a shade structure, and seating along the edge of the garden to make a really functional outdoor classroom that, if you're going to spend money on infrastructure, that looks like a pretty multi-purpose thing, where an entire class has room to operate and to do investigations, and there's shade, and there's a place to sit, and there's a place to work. So, there are a lot of different models. One other point I want to make is that outdoor learning is quintessentially Georgian. Georgia has these amazing natural resources that almost no other state has this sort of diversity and abundance as we do. And Georgia's weather enables year-round outdoor learning, which so many of the states don't have the option to do. Our education standards were designed to be taught outside. Our University of Georgia system runs outdoor learning residential environmental centers all over the state, well, in 6 places across the state. And did you know this? That to graduate from University of Georgia, you have to take an outdoor learning or environmental literacy class. And that's been a requirement for 20 years. But it would be great if that were a requirement in all of our universities, so that not just from a workforce development standpoint, because people might grow up to have careers in green fields, but because every single Georgia citizen needs to have some kind of a basic level of understanding of the wonder of our natural resources and what it takes to take care of them. So also Georgia runs the most effective and amazing Adopt a Spot and Rivers Alive program in the whole country. Through the Department of Natural Resources, they do workshops every single week. And last year involved 12,000 people in cleaning creeks and rivers through the Rivers Alive cleanup program. But the Adopt a Stream program teaches teachers or community leaders how to collect data on their local stream and find out whether it's healthy or unhealthy, and to report that data. We have just amazing programs in Georgia that are really deserve the opportunity to expand and scale. Not to mention the fact that our certification program, AT, which I mentioned earlier. And Georgians support outdoor learning. 83% of Georgians support, quote, the use of existing revenues for environmental stewardship, including protection of water quality, rivers, lakes, and streams, conserving forest, fish, wildlife habitats, and parks, and providing opportunities for children and families to enjoy the outdoors. And in the recent state comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that was just referenced by several of the speakers, outdoor learning, not outdoor recreation, outdoor learning was the 4th most popular outdoor activity in the state. It followed just walking, picnicking, and swimming outdoors, visiting outdoor learning places and nature centers. So that came ahead of hiking, biking, kayaking, shooting, fishing, paddling, all of that stuff was going to outdoor nature centers and doing outdoor learning. So outdoor learning is a big part of outdoor recreation. So how do we make this happen? First of all, we recommend that the Senate Study Committee consider encouraging that the expectation that every Georgia kid be an outdoor learner in every school, all through the state. And that means school-based outdoor learning that's integrated with the curriculum. And it also means field trips off campus and in-school field trips where folks from some of those environmental education centers and so forth to come into the school. And it means also having access occasionally, if not every year, to the immersive residential outdoor learning experiences that our University of Georgia system operates and that many other nature centers also offer. Oh, let me go back to that for you. There we go. And then second, we suggest that there be an investment in outdoor learning, creating a grant program that will increase educator capacity, which might be exactly what Professor Turner said earlier, but we didn't collude on this earlier. Increase educator capacity to engage kids in outdoor learning through professional development for teachers and for non-formal educators, and college courses in teaching outdoors for those pre-service teachers before they get their degrees, and flexible scheduling and innovative logistics at schools that make outdoor learning more possible, whether it relates to transportation or having longer periods or whatever makes it work, as well as potentially outdoor learning coordinators, which some schools have been able to find the funds to do and other schools have not. And then an outdoor learning or eco-STEM or project-based outdoor endorsement. You know, we have math endorsements, science endorsements, STEM endorsement, and other special training certificates that existing teachers can work towards. Let's have an outdoor learning one. Let's spread that expertise so that every teacher has the ability to do that, no matter what, you know, what their grade level, and if they're interested in it, let's make that available. And then let's improve learning spaces at schoolyards and at nature centers so that places like Wawa that we saw today can improve the facilities that they have and make them available to more students and be able to have a whole grade level come at once. Let's provide supplies, equipment, and equipment for student investigation. So maybe they need battery-powered microscopes with the big screens to take outside with them. Maybe there are teachers who are in the throes of COVID need the battery-powered speakers so that they can address a whole class when they're outside and the group is spread out, not sitting in little benches, you know. So whatever is the equipment and the supplies that's needed to make it real meaningful curriculum-based outdoor learning, not just wandering around in the woods once in a while. Let's fund the travel and the cost of visiting nature centers if it takes buses to get kids there. Let's fund hosting nature-related programs at schools if that's more cost-effective or more practical in some cases than going out. And then my third and final recommendation about effective planning, leadership, and collaboration. So maybe this means an Office of Outdoors, as we were talking about earlier, as several speakers talked about. We would suggest from an Environmental Education Alliance standpoint that we love the people today who mentioned, including everybody, who mentioned the possibility of calling it an Office of the Outdoors or Office of Outdoor Education and Recreation. In the 17 other states that have had an Office of Outdoor Recreation, there's an education pillar, but in the confluence accords that each of those states has been asked to sign by the outdoor education industry, that pillar consists of workforce development and preschool education, and there is absolutely no K-12 in any of those agreements. And so let's do it differently in Georgia. Let's add K-12 outdoor learning to whatever kind of an office is created and make sure that that is a priority in our state. Let's talk about planning tools. Several people mentioned the need for ArcGIS filtered maps. Our organization in collaboration with 7 other states in the Southeast just created this a map that this is just an image of that I can share with you in about 2 weeks so that you can actually have the widget and put it on your website if you want to. And what it covers is all the outdoor learning providers in the state and all the school locations in the state. And then it also has different layers that you can filter for the demographics of the area, for the income, the race, the environmental indicators like where the landfills and the Superfund sites are, and the health and wellness indicators like where the impaired waters are and where the food deserts are and where the traditional redlining districts are, where there may be fewer trees. And all of that is layered and available on this map. And what we haven't done and don't have the money to do, at least yet, is to then go to each of those schools that are mapped and find out more about what's available on their campuses and whether they're doing outdoor learning now or hoping to do outdoor learning, and if so, in what form. So we think that ties in nicely with the recommendation that several people have made earlier today, and we hope that what we've done to date can be a starting point for that and be useful to you all. And it is, of course, available for free as well. So that's, and the only other thing I wanted to mention was that Senator Rahman was kind enough to offer to come to our Outdoor Learning Symposium on November 2nd. And at that Outdoor Learning Symposium, which is virtual, there's a showcase strand that'll be each of these schools that are featured on that day, showing videos, either that they're doing a walk shop as they're live streaming it or a recorded video of how they work with students in the schoolyard and what facilities they have. So there'll be, I think, about 12 schools that are represented there, showing off their outdoor learning programs. And it might be a fun way to see some of the things you haven't been able to see in person. And then, of course, there's Senator Rahman, who will be our keynote speaker. So we hope that all of you can join us. And senators, on your list here, there's a code for you that shows how you can get in for free.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Always work better.
Thank you
Anyway,
so
I
much.
know we went a little bit over time, so I don't have any questions. We heard a lot about it. And only thing I'll say, we get the land, we get the weather, we have the talent, we have the organization, we have everything now, how we can connect all the dots together and move forward. And hopefully, if we need another hearing, during the session, we'll try to do it. And if we have any question, we're definitely going to reach out unless my colleagues, if you have any questions. If you have anything.
Can I
any
just
questions?
kind of
Any
wrap up
comment? Yeah.
how I've put all this together? It seems as if what we do is we plant the seeds. I like metaphors, through education from our youngest ones all the way through college. Once we plant those seeds and make people comfortable outside, then the blossom is recreation and tourism and jobs. Once we get people outside playing, we turn them into advocates, and then we begin to care for our earth. And then once we have adults who care for our earth, they raise our future children to love the earth, and the education then becomes a little bit easier, and it begins to feed on itself, and we get better and better. But it takes all those pieces. Thank you, everybody, for all of this great information. All that can be done through a state office of outdoor education and recreation, right?
That's a great conclusion. I guess we don't have anything, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Great
coming.
information.
Yeah.